Okay, so it looks like we're live. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Attorney Cal here. I'm super excited to be back. I think the the I don't know, maybe today, in my opinion, this is probably one of the most important shows. I think because we'll be talking about a subject that's near and dear to me. One, we're talking about your lawyers, your managers, and agents, but I know everybody like we've kind of talked about the processes as it pertains to like getting to the level where you have your copyrights, you have your trademarks, you have all of these different things, right? You're understanding a record deal, you're understanding just all the nuances and different things. But now I think it's important to kind of figure out where you go with that. So with that said, I just think that learning about managers, lawyers, agents, all these different things in the industry are important because you got to build your team, right? You got to have the people around you that's going to help you, build that solid foundation and get to the next level in your career. So just understanding what each of those people do, what are their roles, how much they charge, maybe where you can find them, talking about how people, link up with their agents or managers and lawyers, and also just some references of people in the industry that you should probably know about. We can kind of get our slides and everything pulled up, but before we do, I just kind of want to give some shout outs really quick. I see a lot of people that's joining us and tapped in, so let me start at the top and give some shout outs. So Demorius Beats, what's going on? We also have my boy Legendary, the poet. I was just checking out something he did. He's always doing great studio live streams. He was recording a feature the other night. So make sure y'all tap in with him because he's very, very dope and he's always, super active. We got CD. Let me see. CD 3554. What's going on? We got DP is up with me. What's going on? We got Kiko 19. We got KP Bot. Styles on the beats, and I think he has a question. Quick question: if I use SoCan and Ascap, do I still need to register my work with different entities? That's a really, really great question. If you're using SoCan and ASCAP, we'll talk a little bit more about this later. SoCan and ASCAP essentially are what's called PROs. So they're basically who you start with in the beginning. However, they don't collect mechanical royalties. That's one of the things that I'm not sure about SoCan, but I know as far as ASCAP, they don't collect mechanical royalties. So that's one of the things where you need a music publisher or you need to be able to collect your mechanical royalties. So just think about that because a PRO and a publisher are different. PRO kind of starts you, but a publisher takes you to the next level. So definitely think about that. So we got Devin Sean. What's going on, Devin? Yes, sir. We got Styles on the beat again. You said you with Sony Pub. I think we can probably go ahead and jump in. What I will say is, if anyone has any questions, please jump in, ask your questions. Kind of just dive in, ask anything that you want to ask, and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability while we're going through this. So we can actually go, and I'll talk about this first slide, which is record labels and music publishers. So essentially, in our last time that we talked about record labels and music publishers. Now, the purpose of that was to kind of just define and talk about the differences between the record labels and the music publishers. So I see a lot of people, asking different questions about, am I good if I have this, particular organization? And that kind of comes back to our original conversations about record labels and music publishers. If we go to our next slide, we'll kind of see a little bit about the two and the difference. So we talked about the history of the record label, like how it was first started, how Thomas Edison had one of the first record labels. We talked about the history of the music publisher, going all the way back, to the 1500s. We talked about like the role of the record label is really to do like marketing promotion and to collect on the sound recording side. So essentially, that's just making sure that you're getting paid from Apple Music, YouTube, Spotify, all of those places, right, on the recording side. Then we have the role of the music publisher. The music publisher's role is essentially to make sure when those songs get streamed on the recording side, that you always make sure that you are collecting your compositional royalties. So that's your performance royalties, which will be your publishing, your songwriting, your mechanical royalties, and everything that comes with that. Now, the difference is, of course, we just talked about one's on the sound recording, one's on a compositional side, and then we talked about how by 2030, the music industry combined with the recording, publishing, touring is supposed to be around $131 billion. So just we dove into that. So if you want to kind of get a recap of what we talked about, why it's important, I think you should definitely go in and check out, that record labels and music publishers episode. And if you have questions, you can always hit me up at Attorney Cal, and I'll get back with you. We can go to our next slide. Okay, so today we're talking about lawyers, managers, and agents, and like what their roles are, right? So I think it's important to realize, when we're thinking about lawyers, managers, and agents, like you see all of these successful artists, you see all these successful producers, and a lot of times they're working really, really hard, right? Like you see them going hard, you see their songs charting, you see, all of these different things. But a lot of times the artists and the producers that you see are very, very intelligent. Like I know artists and producers, they get like a bad rap, right? People think like, oh, most artists end up broke, most producers do this, most producers do that. But there are a lot of artists and producers, including yourselves, and that's why you're on here today, that are very smart, right? You all are very smart. You all know, y'all understand supply and demand. Y'all understand how to create. Y'all understand how to market yourself and team building, right? So essentially, as an artist or producer, most teams generally have these three things, right? Not every team has all three, right? But most teams have these three things, right? Most teams have a lawyer, right? A lawyer, somebody when an artist will get something in, they look over it before an artist signs anything, right? They have somebody that come in and look at all the business terms and try to figure out, all right, what's the percentages here? What's the splits here? How long is this deal? All of these things that we talked about. They come in and they look at all of these different things, Then once you get your lawyer to look at everything, generally before that, you have a manager, right? So you have someone that comes in, and essentially what they're doing is they're responsible for everything right? So they're basically coming in and they're saying, all right, I'm going to work with you. I know that, you're starting out, but it's my job to help you to make sure that you're going up and that your career is growing. And one thing that I heard someone say is a good manager gets you, what you deserve. I think it was Tory Lanez that might have said this. I'm not sure who it was. A good manager gets you what you deserve at that particular point in your career, right? So, if it comes with getting this level of press or getting this amount of having this amount of notoriety at that level or these type of looks or opportunities, that's what a good manager does. But what a great manager does is they get you opportunities that you may not even be ready for at that point, right? They get you looks and they get you in places where it's like, this artist is promising. Put him in this magazine. This artist is huge. Give them this look, right? And I think that that's super important because a lot of times you need someone outside of your lawyer or you outside of yourself or your fans that's on a daily basis advocating for you when you're sleeping or when you're trying to figure out how to navigate the industry. So that's your lawyer, that's your manager. And then the last part is agents, right? Agents are very important, right? The way I was taught in law school was that agents are the people that find you work, right? And a lot of times there's this weird thing because it's like, if you don't have work, why do you need an agent, right? And it works vice versa generally. But agents are so important because most artists now, and one of the things that I advocate for, and it shouldn't be this way, but a lot of artists make the majority of their money from touring, right? from touring, merch sales, and all these different things. In the way that these artists get booked, the way these artists get opportunities, the way these artists are able to, go on, do concerts and do work, be at certain venues and perform at festivals, and the way a lot of these producers are able to, go to Las Vegas and do these different hostings or get opportunities to be booked on certain things or do partnerships or do all of these different things. It comes with them having an agent, right? Someone who's advocating on their behalf to get them work or to find them different opportunities because of their connections. So here we have a few people that I want to highlight on this slide. So of course, the first person you all know is 21 Savage, right? So here's his, as a matter of fact, I was just watching an interview of his and he talked about how he owns his masters, right? So here's his lawyer team, right? I think her name is LaPote. I think it's Dina LaPote, right? The next person is Troy Carter, right? Troy Carter, he used to be the manager. He was one of the managers. He has a great story, right? Very, very great guy from Philadelphia. He has a story, and one of his first artists that he managed was Lady Gaga, right? Great guy. And this last guy, his name is Michael Ogus, right? He's arguably the greatest agent in the history of, modern day being an agent, right? He was able to do a lot of things, right? He helped Magic Johnson. He helped a lot of famous actors. He started what's called Creative Artist Agency, right? And Creative Artist Agency is one of the largest agencies in the world. And he was the founder of Creative Artist Agency. So all of these people have been successful in many ways, but one of the things that they've done is, help talent get a lot of things, and go to the next level. I think before we go to the next slide, one of the most interesting things that I will say here is when you're thinking about your agent, when you're thinking about your manager, when you're thinking about your lawyer, right? You want to look for people who genuinely care about you and want to see you do well, right? You don't just want to be someone that's, this is just my friend that I'm helping or whatever. You want somebody who has your best interest at heart and realizes that this is your livelihood, right? So that's why it's super important here to pick your lawyer, your manager, and your agent properly. We're going to dive in and talk a little bit more about each one of them. We'll also talk about generally the fees that they take. So when you all are going out there and you're doing successful things and you're building your team and you're talking to people, you'll understand the value of building your team, but you will know how much it takes and what you should be giving out when it comes to lawyers, managers, and agents. So definitely, check this out. If you're looking to have the learning guide, right? I'm using the learning guide here. And that's going to be at your beatstars.world /protect-your-art. And that's your learning guide. So I'm using the same exact thing that you can have, and it's just going to run down exactly what we're talking about, and it's just a reference and resource. So that's www.beatstars.world /protect-your-art. And that's where all of your stuff is going to be as far as your handout. So we can go to our next slide here. Yep, there we go. Yeah, we can go to our next slide. We'll talk a little bit about the purpose of Protect Your Art. So we always do this before everything, just so we can kind of refresh, just what we're learning and why this is important. So here we go. The purpose of this course is to introduce students to the legal, business, and creative aspects of the entertainment industry. Entertainment law consists of a broad array of core legal issues combined with the relationship issues that relate to producing and protecting entertainment products and talent. What does all that mean, Attorney Cal? This comes directly from my law school class, right? This is basically telling us the purpose of understanding that it's not music, it's not business, it's music, business. So once you make the great music, right, I feel like you all here, most of you all I've heard with your work, so I know you can make great music. But as I spoke about, with Legendary Poet, he's doing a live session showing him recording a feature, right? And everybody that's his followers are getting that. So he's marketing himself, right? I don't know if he has a team or someone's explaining him to do this, but it's very important that not only are you a part of working with, the music side, but the business side, the marketing, building a team, understanding how to put people in positions, building relationships, and understanding the landscape of the entertainment industry. So that's what this is for, just to kind of tie these things together, and make it so that when you're hit with a different topic or somebody's talking to you about copyrights, talking to you about trademarks, you're talking to you about, hey man, who's your lawyer? Hey man, who's your agent? Hey, can I talk to your manager? Like, you'll understand what all of the roles are, and you'll understand the value in, okay, I need to have a manager, I need to have this, I need to do this. So that's kind of what we're focused on here. I see a few questions in the chat. So let's see what we got. I think I saw one. Parker. I've been producing for a while now. What do I need starting out as a producer? If anyone that's watching has a comment form, drop that in the chat right now. I think that'll be definitely helpful, because I got a lot of producers in here. In my opinion, and I could be completely wrong, but just what I see a lot, I think the first thing that you have to have as a producer is you have to have a goal, right? What's your goal? Like, what do you want to do? For example, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I think once you figure out exactly what your goal is and where you want to take everything, then I think from that point, you'll know exactly what you need, right? So like, for example, if you want to be the biggest producer in the world, then likely what you need to do is you need to surround yourself with great artists. You need to be a part of great records. You need to try to get yourself in a position to where you can get to the next level. You can chart, you can do all these things. Versus if you want to just hear your song in movies, right? Or, you want a lot of syncs, then you have to figure out how to get your stuff synced. Now, if you just want to be the biggest producer, on the BeatStars marketplace, you want to get up that chart. You want to figure out how to, be the best on the platform. That's a different thing that you will have to figure out. That comes with, going to your BeatStars Academy, doing the type beat challenges, learning on protect your art, and interacting with the community, right? But if you want to do all three, which is completely possible, then it's a different strategy. But the first thing I would say is just have a goal of where you see yourself in 5 years, and then just make sure you're working every day to get to that goal. Once you have that goal is to tell you what to do. It'll tell you what opportunities to take advantage of and which ones to let pass, right? So that's how I do everything. I start out with a goal. And sometimes you may have to say, you scrap an idea because it doesn't make sense once you get to a certain point. But it's good to start out, with a goal, because you'll be able to, get to where you want to go, right? Let's see if we got another question. Let's see. Nick Anderson. Attorney Cal, do you manage artists yourself? No, I don't actually manage artists, but I do support artists just by being there for them, right? So it's this artist right now. His name is J Bands, J_Bands. I work with him. The same things that I'm telling you all, I talk to him about on a personal level. Like, I talk to him about, make sure you have, your beats purchased. Make sure you have, build a team. Like, have a vision, have a goal. Like, don't give up. Like, look over this agreement. Who you going to, do all of these different things with. So I don't necessarily manage artists, but what I do here, I do on a personal level because I just want people, to be able to be successful. So I'm trying to see if we have any more questions. And if not, we'll keep going. So we can go to our next slide. Let's see. We got another question really quick. Attorney Cal, can I get you to recreate my BeatStars beat lease agreements in layman's terms so not to an artist can understand them? That's a great question. So first of all, what I will say is for your BeatStars leases, right? I have looked at those leases, right? The leases are, in my opinion, very, very, I wouldn't say difficult to understand, but as far as just making sure that they're as legally sound as possible, but still keeping them and maintaining them to be like, where they cover all the necessary things, where they're not too complicated. I think the leases do a great job at that, right? But what I will say is definitely schedule office hours with me. to talk about the lease. Maybe you can understand or better understand your leases. But what I always encourage is people to study the leases. I know it seems difficult, but go in and study the leases. Play around with the leases. Take parts of the leases and do your research. And at the same time, make sure that you're gathering everything you need from the leases so that when you're looking at the leases and your clients are looking at the leases that are posting, right, they're understanding that the reason why these leases are structured the way is so both parties can be protected. So you want to have your leases to where people can understand them in layman's terms, but you also want to have the legal knowledge and the legal capability to protect yourself. So that's why the leases say, what they say. So I know there are legalese within the leases, but you do also, want to be protected. So that's something that's very, very important. And I think, something that's very important. Please, everybody, comment. We have questions from Parker. He's asking about some good things that, you can do as far as a producer starting. And I said have a goal, but I don't know if you all have any advice for him, but please in the chat, just drop your advice for Parker. And Parker, I have office hours from 12 to 2 on Friday. So if you DM me at Attorney Cal, we can set something up and maybe we could just, talk and you pick my brain or whatever. Question, can someone sue me for using a photo from Pinterest as my cover for my beat? This is a really, really great question. I would say yes, right? When using photos, and we'll talk about lawyers right in a minute. But when using photos, you have to be super careful because if you don't have a license to use a particular photo, what'll happen is you'll use a photo improperly, and then the person that owns the copyright for that particular photo, they can always just come in and sue you, right? They can always come in and they could say, hey, why are you using my photo? And when people have copyrights, one of the things that you have to realize, and this is why I always talk about protecting your art, right? That house. When I post that house, it's important that when you see that house, you think about your intellectual property is no different than a piece of real estate, right? So when I'm saying that when you got a beat or you got a piece of art or you got a song or whatever it may be that you're putting out there and you copyright it, that particular copyright is like a piece of real estate. And what happens is that particular piece of real estate, it draws and brings in money in several different ways, right? So if you got a beat or you got a song that you put out, you can get money from streaming. You can get money from publishing. You can get money from syncs. You can get money from, deals where your song is used on an exclusive basis. You can get money from all of these different things, right? However, a lot of times people forget that not only are those ways you can get money, but suits are also ways that people get money. And it's another thing that's within that house. So you have to always be careful when you're using stuff and you don't have a license, because you can get sued, and those fines, if they have followed the statutory guidelines, can be up to $150,000 per infringement. So I'll always keep that in mind. How is an artist gets 100% secure with owning a master after buying the exclusive, knowing dozens of people already released songs on the same? What makes it exclusive? Great question. Guys, please keep sending in your questions because we're gonna knock these questions out back to back. But this is a really important question. I think, in my opinion, and I know this from being growing up in Atlanta. So when I grew up in Atlanta, I moved to Atlanta when I was 10 years old. At that point, there was a lot of artists, right? You had your Snap sound going on. You had Roscoe Dash. You had J Money, you had Young LA, Travis Porter, you had the Rich Kids, you had all of these different groups, right? And a lot of the beats kind of sound the same. You had Shawty Low, T.I., Gucci Mane, a lot of the beats sound the same. But back then, I didn't know a lot of this stuff probably was licenses, right? Different licenses, whatever. However, those were non-exclusive licenses. As far as the exclusive license, generally, the purpose of purchasing the exclusive license is so that at that point, when you buy that license, you're saying, even if there was people in front of me that use this beat, I'm the last person that's going to use it for the term of that agreement. Why that's important is, for example, if you're a huge artist and you want to come in and you want to actually put that song out, 9 times out of 10, you'll be like, I never heard this beat before. Now, it may be people that have also, heard this before you, but you're basically saying, I'm giving them as a producer the exclusive right at this point to be the only person to use this. But you're not giving them ownership, right? So they're the only person that can use this at this point, but you're not giving them ownership. You're only allowing them to be the last person to use it. Now, everybody else is grandfathered in if that's how your licenses are written. But you're just basically saying, like, look, they're telling you, I don't want nobody else to use this beat, right? And that's fine. But that's just the purpose of it. It's just exclusivity. And a lot of times people want that because they want to know that they're the last person that's going to buy that beat. And a lot of times I know I'm going to be the last person, and I'm going to be the person to make it a hit. So you'll hear a lot of the same beats if you listen to stuff, but only certain songs with those particular beats will be hits. So that's something to think about. I think Bufo, what's up, bro? He talks about it very good. He says you're supposed to be given an exclusive use to the beat, not exclusive ownership of the master. There's a difference. Again, there is a difference. So now the difference between the exclusive license and, like Bufo was talking about, an exclusive sale. An exclusive sale is essentially where you're transferring, and basically you're making yourself a work for hire and you're transferring over the master. At that point, they have ownership, 100% ownership in the master. Generally, you're supposed to keep your composition, but they have 100% ownership in the master. Versus with an exclusive beat sale, you're saying that you can exclusively license this beat, but I'm keeping 100% control of the master. So that's a very, very great distinction. And I think you're right on. I seen in my exclusive BeatStars, it says people can buy the license back from other. However, you have to give them double what they paid. Correct me if I'm wrong. As far as the license goes, I'm not particularly sure the actual language, but again, one thing that you have to realize is when you have a license, or you go in and you have a license or any contract, it's a contract, right? But it can always be renegotiated. So say you come in, somebody buys a non-exclusive from you, or they buy an exclusive from you, and a bigger artist comes and they want to buy an actual exclusive. They want to own the beat, not a license. You can always go back to that artist and renegotiate that deal, renegotiate that particular license, and tell them, look, I'll give you 5 beats instead of this. I'm about to sell this master. And generally, if you do a great job and talk to them, you'll be fine. So I think that's really important. Can you copyright your beat if you use a loop or chant that isn't copyrighted? For example, if we use Beethoven chants that are from a sample pack and not ripped from the song, super important. In season 2 in particular, we're going to talk about loops and things like that, because I know this is a very, very nuanced, and like I always get a lot of questions, and I always say it depends on the license, right? You have to, when you go to these loop websites, like say you go to the top loop websites. I don't know what loop websites you all use, but comment I think, and this might help Parker, because I know loops are important in the music industry, right? Like people use loops, sample packs. So comment your loop, like the loop sites that you go to, Parker. I hope you see this in the chat, because this could help you as well starting out. But wherever you go to get your loops or your sample packs or your kits or whatever it is that you use to help build your creations, it's always important that you look at their terms of service, because your terms of service are going to dictate at that point what you're going to own once you use that loop. Let me tell you why that's important. Say you go to KyleLoops.com, and I don't own Kyle Loops, but I'm just saying. But in my license and my terms of service, it says that any beat that's created with my loop that does XY sales, I'm entitled to 50%. But you didn't read the license, right? So you get this big hit, you do all these different things, and you're like, all right, I'm finna get paid. And then you get an email from KyleLoops.com saying, hey, can you send us over 50% of the money you made? And what you're not realizing is, in the terms of service for that particular loop site, you've essentially assigned, your rights to receive a certain amount of money because you use those loops. So it's always important that when you're looking at loops, you're going to sites where they're offering loops, or they're saying royalty free, or they're saying all these different things, be careful. Not only do you have to worry about that, but what you have to worry about as well is when loops sample other things. Because while their loop may be royalty free, the person that owns the composition of that loop, meaning the sample that is cited in that loop, that person still could always come and say, my sample wasn't clear, I need to be paid, and I want this particular percentage of the song. If I'm not mistaken, we talked about this in the beginning, how Sting, when Juice WRLD sampled his song with Lucid Dreams, he wanted a specific part of the song for that guitar riff, right? So I think it's important that you think about that when it comes to loops. But Kyle, does Kyle copyright the loops? So when you're thinking about copyrighting loops, I think it depends on if the person that owns the site has a copyright on the sample or the loop is copyrighted, right? Because essentially a loop is no different than a beat, right? You can copy loops. For example, you can put up to 10 particular copyrights, on a copyright registration form, and you can copyright that stuff. But what's important here is that you're realizing that you have to read the terms of service, because those loops may be copyrighted and they may not be, right? So by you using that copyright, when you're using a copyright, you typically have to get a license, and within that license comes, them taking some part of the fee, whether it be the producer fee, the royalties that come on the sound recording side, and also a percentage of the pub. So think about that. Hey Kyle, what if someone else tries to post on YouTube or a song you publish? That's why it's important to have content ID. Because if you have content ID and you have publishing registered, generally what happens is once you claim your ownership, if ads are run on that particular song, or if money is generated from that song, you as the person that essentially registered, that song first with content ID, you're able to get money from that, right? So that's important. Let me see what other questions that we have. Super important question. When I buy a sample pack and it contains a note in a notepad, that folder that I have to split 50-50, is it equal with some type of license or some agreement? And that's a gray area. That's a really, really great question, Kiko19. And I've seen that before, right? Because, it's different, than a license, right? Because a license is, it looks more official, or it looks more this. However, I wouldn't write those notepad things off, because they're going to argue and say, you saw that when you opened up the thing, when you opened up that folder, because I know how it comes generally, maybe a zip file or a folder, you open the folder up, it has all the different files, and maybe at the top it says, read this before using, or something like that. They're going to argue that it's just like with terms of service, by you using that and putting it in there and having actual knowledge, right, of that actual note, that you agree to the terms and conditions of that division. So they're going to argue, hey, this is my copyright. I own all these different loops, therefore I should own 50% of whatever you create. So I think it's important not to short those off, because I know a lot of people, short those off, and because they don't look like, there's something that, that's like legit, right? Like legal, but at the same time, a contract could be formed in many ways. So I wouldn't just, short those things off. I would actually take them serious and just make sure that whatever the terms are, whether it's 50-50, 75, 25, or 100, whatever it is, that you're comfortable with that in the event that, your track blows up, because that's always the issue nobody thinks about. But when a song goes viral, it gets a billion streams, or becomes the next, the Box or Old Town Road, and then at that point, it's just like, we kind of got to think about all these things. So it's best to do it in the beginning. So let's jump in here. Keep dropping those questions in the chat. I appreciate you all asking so many great questions. And drop your questions in the chat, and we'll get through this, and then we'll ask we'll go back and answer some of the questions that's been asked. The first question: what is the role of the lawyer in the music industry? So I'm gonna read from the Learning Guide. The role of a lawyer is to advise on legal matters. So they help with contract management, copyright claims, trademark disputes, artist representation, and negotiation. They help clients understand complex concepts that drive music business and develop strategies designed to best like procure the best possible outcome. So you're seeing it here, right? So of course I'm not you all's like lawyer, right? But you know, if you do have lawyers or you have somebody that's legal or you talk to a lawyer before or something like that, you know, essentially what we're doing here, this type of dialogue is what happens when you have a lawyer, right? You have a lawyer, you know, you talk to them, you ask them questions. Look, man, I I make a majority. You can say, look, I make the majority of my money on BeatStars, right? I use loops, you know, I do publishing, I have all of these different things. And this is my question. I want to know about loops. Tell me about loops. They tell you about loops. All right. I want to know about, should I copyright all my songs? Should I do this? Should I do that? What should I do here? Right. And essentially, a lawyer is just a tree and that grows branches. And because you're able to pick the leaves off of it, right? And they grow back because we're always supposed to be learning and doing different things. But it's our job to make sure that you understand concepts so that you can make decisions properly, right? It's not our job to make the decisions or to tell you what to do, because a lot of times from what people think is like, oh, these lawyers are bad or the lawyer did this or does that. No, it's a lawyer's job to learn as much as possible. Look at everything, right? The landscape of not only your decision, but other decisions that has been made similar. Have, you know, basically enough knowledge in the event that, you know, this happens or this happens. And then we lay out all the things, and then you as the, you know, the boss, the entrepreneur, the producer, you know, it's your job to make that decision. And then the lawyer, you know, will help you execute that decision, whether it be through a license, whether it be through a contract or contract negotiation or whatever it may be. But it's completely up to you. But you want to have a lawyer to that helps you and teaches you, right? You don't want to just have somebody that, you know, does stuff on a transactional basis whenever you has something, but you want to have somebody that can actually teach you, right? You want to have somebody that you feel comfortable enough with asking questions, that you don't feel like you're burdening, and that can explain stuff on a level for where you understand it. For me, I don't understand stuff when I first read it, or so I need people that I can call on, or, you know, or books or resources or other lawyers that are comfortable and that are knowledgeable enough and willing enough to explain stuff to me, and they're not frustrated by topics, even if they don't understand it. They have research. So you want a lawyer like that. The next thing, right? Bufo, great comment. The next thing is, what is the role of the manager in the music industry? Let me say something about Bufo's comment first. Also, you want a lawyer that's your lawyer too. Like, you want a lawyer that you can trust. Like, this guy is my lawyer, right? He's not gonna not give me all the information or things on this side because he's trying to, you know, help somebody else. So he's putting you in a situation where he's not being ethical. You always want to make sure your lawyer is ethical and they have your best interests at heart and they're zealously advocating for your best interests, right? Because if not, you know, you may be getting taken advantage of. So that's important, right? Having a lawyer that's your lawyer. We also, with the marketing team, we did a great article about 5 red flags that you should look for, right? And essentially, with our marketing and social media team, what we're talking about, check that out. Is the 5 things that you should look for and be aware of when, you know, doing a deal. And one of them is making sure that your lawyer is your lawyer. So great Bufo on that. The next thing is the role of the manager in the music industry. The role of the manager is to coordinate everything. They counsel, they advise, they take care of business arrangements, they oversee business affairs, professional matters, long-term plans, and they essentially facilitate relationships with lawyers, agents, labels, and publishers. This is so important. First, I will say the question that most people ask, and I hear it a lot, is how do I know when I need a manager, right? I think you know when you need a manager. when you're making a certain amount of money or you're doing so many things that it gets to a point where it's like, all right, this is starting to take me away from my craft. Like, if you're able to manage stuff and life is still, doing everything and going well, then I think you fine, right? You fine at that point. But when you start seeing that, what you're doing, on a, on a business level outside, because we talked about it being a music business, it's taking you so far away from your craft that it's potentially jeopardizing what your goal is. Like we talked about with Parker, having a goal is kind of the first thing. But if you feel like at that point all of the business is taking you away from the music, then you need a manager. And what a manager's role is, a manager, in my opinion, right? In my opinion, a manager is essentially a head coach, right? So, for example, I look at everything in sports analogy. So, if I would have to compare a team, like if I would have to compare, a producer to a sports team, right? Like I would say a producer is basically either a basketball team or the owner of a basketball team or the owner of a football team, right? So what you have there is you have people, you have your front office, that's your general manager, right? You have all your executives or people that you help work with. Then you have your team, right? You have your assistant, you have, people helping you with your social media, you have PR, you have a label, you have a publisher, you have people that help you with syncs. You have all these different people, right? And that makes up your team, right? And then your manager, in my opinion, is like a head coach, right? They have the relationship with all your team members. You see what I'm saying? And they coordinate that to help you get to your goal. So the reason why it's important to, when you're picking your manager, to think about these things is, one, your manager has to understand what your goal is, right? Your manager has to understand how to organize people and to build relationships and to help you further your goal, right? And the last thing is, your manager has to understand that it's about sacrifice, right? Because if your manager doesn't understand that, they may not understand how much they have to give up, to put you first, right? So when you're thinking about building your team, you can start with a lawyer, you can start with a manager, but at the end of the day, I know we always think about, you're an owner of that team. Whether it's, if you like basketball, if you like soccer, if you like baseball, if you like football, you're the owner of that team, right? So it's your job to put people in position to help your team grow and to have that solid foundation so you can get to the next level. Because that's how you're trying to do. You're trying to level up. You're trying to get to that goal. So what is the role of an agent? The role of an agent is to find opportunities. Music agents work to schedule concerts, tours, and personal appearances, negotiate fees, and contract those for booking. So, in my opinion, I talked about Michael Ogus in the beginning, right? He has one of my favorite books of all time, and I recommend you all read it. If you read that book, it will show you the value of having an agent. He has a book called Who is Michael Ogus? Literally, I read that book probably once or twice a year because it helps you develop and understand what an agent is supposed to do. And another thing that I would recommend as well is when you're trying to figure out what people on your team is supposed to do, because it's like, what does this person do? Like, I know I had them, but what's their role? If you want to like check what they're supposed to be doing, what you go in and you do is find books that are written by the best in that field. So if you want to figure out what a great lawyer is supposed to do, go in and read books about great lawyers, and then you fact check who's on your team based on that. Find books on great managers, autobiographies on people that started out as managers, and see what they did to make their clients be successful. Find books on agents, like Who is Michael Ogus, and see all of the things that he went through and make sure David Letterman, Magic Johnson, all of these people were successful, and you'll see exactly what you need, right? So agents, in my opinion, are so important because you have a booking agent, right? They help you get shows. They help you get on festivals. They help set up live streams. And my favorite agent, one of them, and then I think is very, very powerful, but a very great agent, is Rich Paul, right? We all know Rich Paul. He is the agent for LeBron James. Anthony Davis, I want to say Ben Simmons, a bunch of great NBA stars, and he helps them negotiate their contracts. He deals with everything basketball related. He's the person that's helping them get these opportunities, whether they be endorsements, right? So when you're seeing a lot of your favorite artists or your favorite producers, they get all these opportunities. Not only do they probably have great management or great lawyers, but they likely have great agents and people that know how to find and work that's going to generate money and help build their brand as well. So when you're thinking about all these things, always consider the role on your team of your lawyer, your manager, and your agent, right? And you'll know at what time those things are needed because you'll see like, hey, I'm spending more time on the business part than I am on my music. And this is causing me to, take away from my craft more than what I'm comfortable with. At that point, then it's time, to say, all right, let me start with my lawyer or let me start with my manager. And then if you get one, you can use one to help you get the other. So if you get a lawyer first, you can use that lawyer to help you get a manager and that manager to get an agent. So it all works together. But I think it's important to first, think about, doing everything you can within your craft, building, potentially getting you a lawyer and a manager, either or. And then once you build up more with that lawyer and that manager or both, then, reaching out to an agent or trying to get an agent. And that's important. The next thing, the really important question, right? How much does a lawyer cost? How much does a manager cost? How much does an agent cost, right? That's, in my opinion, one of the things that I think is important because this knowledge levels the playing field of when you're meeting with people to decide whether or not you want them to be a part of your team, right? Like, you want somebody on your team that's essentially helping you be successful, but at the same time, you don't want somebody on your team that's allowing their help to choke you from being able to enjoy your success. So that's why I think it's important to know how much a lawyer costs, and why, what to expect. So typically, this is typical, right? Things can change. A lawyer should not charge you, and it changes because this is what I learned in law school. Well, this is what they taught us, how to build, right? But that could be wrong. This could be because I'm in Florida. 3 to 5%. This comes from my law school class. Typically, what happens is in these situations, you work with a lawyer, they help negotiate something, and whatever they negotiate, they typically take 3 to 5% of that. However, if you don't feel comfortable with giving up a percentage, if you have the money to pay up front, that lawyer may have like an hourly fee or whatever that may be, and you can pay that instead. Like, hey, I don't really want to do 3 to 5%, but I'm comfortable with paying you an hourly rate based on how much work you do. Now, I've heard Russ make the argument. I know we all know who Russ is. I love his thing where he talks about how he makes more money off of his actual music sales and touring and how he does all these things and how independent is power. But he has a philosophy that he doesn't want to pay a lawyer a percent. He would much rather pay a lawyer hourly, because giving up percentages, which is not ownership within your copyrights, whether it be your sound recordings or compositions, is something he doesn't want to do. And there's other people that don't mind giving up a percent because it's just like, I want to got this deal or been able to negotiate this deal without you. So just always be looking to say, look, man, 3 to 5%, that's generally the range. However, if you don't want to, if you don't have the cash to pay up front, you can always negotiate 3 to 5%. Say, look, man, I don't have the cash up front, but I could give you a percentage of this when I get paid. Or you can say, look, I'm not comfortable with this percentage or whatever it be. It may not be 3 to 5%, but whatever it is, but I'm more comfortable paying your hourly rate. What's your hourly rate? So that's something to think about. Managers. How much does a manager cost, right? So this varies, right? You have where it says 5 to 15%. I've seen 20%. I've seen 25%. I've seen 30%. In my opinion, over 30%, at that point, that's tough, right? But it really depends on the relationship you have with your manager. One thing that I will say about the fees that managers have, um, they differ based on artists, right? They differ based on producers. Don't be giving up ownership of your stuff, right? So if you own all your license or your masters, don't be assigning over, and that goes with lawyers too. Don't be assigning. First of all, lawyers not supposed to take ownership of anything as it relates to transactions, right? So you shouldn't be doing that. But as it pertains to lawyers and managers on a basic level, right? Don't don't be giving up ownership of your works, right? Your masters or your publishing, all of these things that you own, right? These copyrights that you own in exchange for representation by a lawyer or manager. Doesn't make sense. You don't have to do that. And there's great lawyers and managers out there who will work with you for a fee, but won't even take ownership in nothing that you do, right? They'll only take a fee. So definitely think about that when you're doing it. The last question that we have is, how much does an agent cost? And this depends, right? I've seen with the NBA, I think they limit them their bargaining thing, right? Collective bargaining agreement limits an agent to 4% in the NBA, so you can't take more than 4%. However, I've also seen a range of 5 to 15% as far as what a booking agent or what an agent may take. However, I always try to negotiate that down and don't get taken advantage of. Also, don't give over ownership of anything, right? In order to get somebody to be your agent, your manager, or your lawyer. You can always find someone that's willing to do a great job and help you for a fee that you can afford instead of giving up ownership because someone's promising you something, right? So I always think about that. Let's jump in and see, we got a couple minutes left. Let's jump in and see what questions we have. Nick Anderson, what's going on, Nick? What's the best way to sign with the right management without having any professional content released? So that's a great question, right? And it really all depends on what you know and who you know. So for example, if you have a record or you have records or you have beats or whatever you may have, and you got 100 in a clip, 100 beats done, you got great relationships, but you don't have anything released, and you need somebody to help you, upload all your beats, try to get your beats playlisted, try to do your marketing, do your promotion, doing all these different things, right? You may say, look, man, I don't have nothing out right now, but I know I'm gonna need management. Can you help me for this fee or for this particular thing? That's important, because if you don't have anything out yet, it could be that starting out on the right foot with a manager who will take care of all of the promotional parts of what you're doing while you focus in on, the creation part, that could help you out a lot. So I would definitely recommend thinking about that. But, that's something that, just consider and ponder. Kiko 19. How to find a manager or lawyer? I mean, where to look for them? LinkedIn? Great question. So in my opinion, the best place to get lawyers, managers, and agents are references. Like when you see somebody being successful, and a lot of times they may not respond, right? Hit them up and be like, man, how you did that? Like, man, I see you just got that sync. How you got that sync? Who you was with that helped you get that sync? Who reached out to get that sync? Oh, okay. Hey, man, who your lawyer on this deal with that sync? Who negotiated that sync for you? Oh, who your manager? Like what they say to you? Who's your manager? So don't be afraid. When you see a producer that get a booking for a show or a walkthrough, or you see a producer that get a pub deal, or you see a producer get a record deal, I always ask people, like Bufo is saying, right, man, who is your lawyer? Who is your manager? Who is your agent? Why y'all doing this? Why did y'all negotiate this? And try to get people off of recommendations, because people gonna tell you straight up whether this person's good, whether they're responsive, whether they like actually doing stuff that can help them or help you, or they're gonna tell you if they're not good. So it's always good to get recommendations, but if you can't find a recommendation to find lawyers, I know one of the things that you can do, like I'm in Florida, right? So if you go to Florida Bar and you search entertainment, you'll find me. Um, but if you go to like different, depending on what state you're in, like I don't know what state you're in or what country you're in, but there's places where there's lists of managers, there's lists for agents. So you can always go in and you can find, these things, and it'll help you pick who you want. But I always definitely start off with firsthand people, because if not, um, you may get somebody, but they may not be the best person for you. Um, this is always true, right? What Bufo saying, tell the attorney who sent you acknowledging and bringing value to both parties. So this is something that I do, right? Like if somebody sends me somewhere, like to a restaurant, and they know the owner, or if I send somebody somewhere, or whatever it may be, you want to always say, hey, Attorney Cal told me to come get you for my legal team because he said you was a great lawyer, or he told me to come and make you my manager because you do a great job with such and such. And what that does is it not only does it help build that rapport, build that relationship, but what it also does too is, because if me and this person has a previous relationship, they're not gonna just treat you any type of way because they know you connected to me, right? So it's just like, oh, I'm connected to him, so I can't, because I know Attorney Kyle not gonna play by his people, right? Or whoever it may be, right? That person has a previous relationship, so they have to be careful with how they treat you because you're connected to whoever they're connected to as well. So that's really, really great insight, Bufo. And I think it's powerful when you have those relationships. That's one of the things that I want to close with. This is all about building that solid foundation. When you're talking about being an owner, whether it's your sports team or whether it's being, being your particular, boss of your own company or whatever it may be, building your team, but also while you're building your team, building your relationships right within your team, and then having a team that's also building relationships, with other people. It's just gonna make you bigger, right? Like it's just gonna put you on a map and put you on a different level. And I just think that that's something that a lot of people are missing. Team building. Like everybody can cook up, right? Like at a certain point, we know BeatStars got the best producers. All y'all are dope. Like I just put y'all on them. I just listen to y'all, like the stuff y'all did with the KRK challenge, right? I just listen to all y'all, and I'm listening. I'm like, all of these beats are great, but the people that's gonna stand out are the people that have a team. They know how to organize and do these things, and if they don't, they have people that can teach them and strengthen them and help them do that. So definitely think about that. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, y'all are very, very welcome. I appreciate you all tuning in. And I think this topic to me is very important because I think at a certain point, you all are very successful already. But to get to that next level of success, I think it comes with team building. It comes with not only being able to control stuff, but put people in position who can also control. And it's just like having things work for you even when you're sleeping. I think that's important. So the topic that we have is going to be protecting my intellectual property, which will be a recap. And what we'll do, we've never done this before, but I want to be able, and I'm going to talk to the team about how this works because I know we do it with BeatStars Academy and other things. I want to have a show where we recap everything that we learned so far. We're going to have quizzes. So I see a lot of you all talking about cooking up and doing different things. So I want to be able to give away some promo credits. I don't know what else we can give away, but I'm going to talk to the team and see promo credits. Like maybe bring some of you on for when we do season 2. Like maybe whoever get the most questions, they come on and they teach us something, one day or whatever it is. I'll think about it, but that's what our future topic is going to be. So we'll maybe have like a panel where we all come on and we just talk and we, chat or whatever. Next season it'll be based on, whoever does the best as well. So, that's our future topic. And then on the next one, we'll have more topics. I know we're going to be talking about loops. I know we're going to be talking about, setting like LLCs and corporations. Just think like some of the things that came up. We'll be talking about that in future episodes. So we can go to the next slide. again, if you all have any questions, I have a few that I need to answer now. Hit me at Attorney Cal. That could be on Twitter. That could be on Instagram. That could be on BeatStars. I'm trying to think, am I on anything else? Nah, that's it. But if you hit me, I'll definitely respond to you. I already have an office hours from 12 to 2 on Fridays. I have one set up for this Friday with a gentleman that hit me up on Twitter. So if you want to do an office hours, maybe pick my brain, ask me questions, just have a chat about the topics, definitely just hit me up and we'll make something happen. As far as that, that's all that I have. Again, I appreciate each of you all for tuning in. Like I always say, your intellectual property is no different than a piece of real estate. So when you see me on Instagram posting a house, right, a little house, I always think about, the same way that a house can make $1,000 when it's being rented out. Each one of your beats can make $1,000. If you got 1,000 beats making $1,000, that's $1 million, right? So never treat your intellectual property anything like it's just anything. Don't just sign it away. Don't just sign anything. Always think about your intellectual property being like real estate, and with that, you'll definitely be successful, even more successful because you all already are very successful. So yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in, being attentive, asking questions. If you need me, hit me at Attorney Kyle on all platforms, and we can chop it up. Have a great evening. Stay safe. Peace.